So I was going through my life the other day. Um, just all like I just had this moment of pause that I usually don't have. I kind of like crashed out a bit because I was feeling so overwhelmed in my life, and it kind of made me start thinking about how I go through this process of grief and trouble and all the situations that happen in my life, and it kind of made me think like, I should make a YouTube channel just to document this process of where I am in my journey in my life, moving to Los Angeles and pursuing the career of acting and whatnot, and what that would look like. But I didn't want to have like a really structured YouTube page. I wanted to be very casual because I wanted to talk about like my diet, what an actor does to get ready for a role, what an actor eats to get ready for a role. Let me turn my phone on silent. My bad. What an actor does to get ready for a role, and all these things that like the processes of behind that. And so this is kind of like the first video where I talk about being overwhelmed. And I kind of wrote down some bullet points and things like that that I can go through as well. Where's my notes? Again, this is real casual, bro. Like, I'm gonna tell story times on here, man. I'm gonna tell like different stories about me traveling out the country. I might tell stories about how I process grief, losing loved ones, family, friends, coming from Memphis, all these different things. I'm just gonna use it as like just a diary for myself. But the first thing I had was, what does it mean to be overwhelmed? And what happens to me personally when I start to feel overwhelmed? So for me personally, when I'm feeling overwhelmed, one of the things that tends to show up in my life a lot of times is hypersexuality. And I feel like a lot of black men or men in general tend to deal with these things, especially if you're dealing with past traumas. But hypersexuality tends to show up really, really heavily when I'm feeling overwhelmed or anxious. I used to think I never got anxious. I used to think that anxiety was a thing that happened to people that were, or women, or they were too in tune with their emotions, or all these different things, all these stereotypes on how these feelings pop up in your life. And when you're a man, a lot of times people don't tell you or present the proper ways on how to process these emotions and what these different emotions look like when they show up in your body. And one of the things that I've learned is that when I'm feeling really anxious, I start to be extremely hypersexual in many different ways, trying to find sex or trying to find all these different things from different women in different types of ways. You know what I mean? Not soliciting, I don't do that. But like just overly indulging in women or straying away from the path that I want, or not even allowing myself proper connection to be with a significant other. Meaning that I'm not giving myself emotionally, I'm not giving myself mentally, I'm just only looking for physical interaction. And then I tend to shut out and be away from my friends. I tend to go very solitary and be to myself and not allow myself to be included into things. And I get irritated when that happens. And I often don't think about how I am the person that's causing these things. My friends will text me or they'll call me and I won't answer. I'll be looking at the phone like, bro, I ain't answering that phone call. You know what I mean? And I started to think about like, it was worse in my earlier 20s. I'm 27 now. It was way worse in my earlier 20s. But as I started to move here, I started to see those things creep up. And as you're on this journey, a pursuit of whatever thing that you're looking at accomplish in your life, you'll start to realize the patterns that pop up in your life that cause you to not reach the goals that you're looking for. And I started to realize those patterns early on in my life, early on in my 20s. And I feel like I've kind of worked out the kinks now to where I'm able to recognize them faster. Like in the past, I would just let them happen to me. I just let things happen to me rather than me happening to the things. But now I'm able to process those things, recognize those things, and change my mind and my psychology to go towards those issues in the proper way. So one of the things that I tend to do now is pray. And I'm not even a religious man. That's the thing. Like I wouldn't call myself religious at all. Like I'm pretty secular when it comes to religion, but I'm extremely spiritual. Um, and that's a new phenomenon for me as I've gotten older. I'm extremely spiritual. And what does spiritual mean? It just means that I have a connection with the universe, God, the creator, whatever you want to call him, Allah, Yeshua, like anyone, anything. If you want to call him Jesus, whatever, I have my own personal connection to whatever that divine force may be. And he understands me as, or they, or whatever it is, understands me and my wants and my needs and my fears and my goals. And because as you get older, you do realize that there is a creative force, whatever that force may be. There is a creative force in this world that you're living in. There is a plane of existence or veil of existence that is not reachable. There's an intermediary there that you can't touch. And as I've gotten older, I've learned to tap into that pot of gold, if you will, because when you're on this journey of life, it can seem very mundane and slow and like boring sometimes, or it can seem overwhelming, which is the feeling that I was feeling. And you'll try to start thinking about ways to get away from that feeling. Whereas as you get older, you start to sit in that feeling and you start to think about those feelings because those emotions are pure. You know what I mean? They're coming up for a reason. They're showing themselves. They're showing their head for a reason. So you start to feel like, how do I go about these processes to understand this feeling that I'm having? And if it's a bad feeling, how do I get rid of it? Or if it's not a bad feeling, because all feelings aren't bad, even if it's a negative emotion, how do I sit in this emotion and use it to my advantage? So right now, I'm preparing for a role that I'm going to be shooting at the end of the month in January. But at the same time, I just moved into a new spot in Los Angeles. I picked up a job doing website design for a company, and I'm also in pre-production for a short. And I'm submitting. I have a short that I have to do a director's reel for another thing. So I have all these different things going on at the same time, and I am a single father, and like, we co-parents of my daughter. School is about an hour away and I don't have a car. So, and then also I picked up a job where I work in the graveyard shift and I'm working nights. And so it's throwing off my sleep schedule. So as you can imagine, I'm starting to feel this buildup of overwhelm of what do I do, of how do I fix these things, of where do I go. And then so those emotions of hypersexuality start to show up. They start to show the face. Start to reach out to women and try to subside these feelings, you know what I mean? But when I noticed it, which is how I understood, I was like, this is a different. I'm growing, you know. I'm getting better with understanding these emotions. You see, okay, wait, this is happening. I'm feeling anxious. There's a reason why I'm putting off this work. There's a reason why I'm not hitting, I'm not hitting the deadline of what's supposed to be coming up. There's a reason for that. There's a reason why I'm running away from these things. Why is that? Why is that happening? And you realize, okay, I have to have steps in order for when these things happen and show up that I'm able to fix it if it's a bad thing. And the reason why I am sitting and fixing it right in this moment is because of the moment that I'm in, if that makes sense, right? So let's say this was 3 months prior to now. I might sit in those emotions. Not saying that I would allow the hypersexuality to exceed and grow. I might allow that emotion to sit and wallow, or I might take a moment to pause in my life and be like, okay, why am I feeling overwhelmed? Let me take a moment to just pause. Let me take a moment to think. Let me take a moment to breathe. And that's different than having that emotion and then, okay, saying, in this moment, I need to fix this emotion so I can get back on track. Those are two separate things. So again, first thing was the spirituality and praying. I don't pray to a particular God. When I pray and I get on my knees, I ask the universe to give me light and understanding. I ask the universe to guide me in whatever way is possible. And the third thing is I ask and this is particularly for black people or black men in general, I ask my ancestors to put their hand on me and guide me as well. Because I feel like one of the things that's really helped me is ancestors, understanding why there's ancestor worship and understanding why it's important to connect with your ancestors. As a black man, a lot of my history I didn't know. I didn't know my own history. And when people say their history, they tend to talk about Jim Crow or the 80s or the 70s, the civil rights movement or the black power movement, or they might be going back to slavery, or they might be going all the way back to Africa. That's not what I mean in this moment. What I mean in knowing your history is knowing your grandfather's life. Who was your grandfather? Who was your grandmother? What did your grandmother do? What did your grandfather do? What did your great grandfather do? Where did he grow up? What did he like? What foods did he like? These people that came from before you, these direct descendants of your life, who are these people? What did they want out of life? What did they care about? And keeping that particular legacy alive. That's what I mean. My grandfather on my mother's side, I never met him, but he was a longshore fisherman. He would spend months at a time without his family in New Orleans, right? And he died when my mother was a really, really small baby, and my grandmother had to raise like 10 kids on her own. And I have to think about those things and understand, what was he feeling when he had to be away from his family for months at a time. Understanding those people and honoring those people for the sacrifices and life that they lived, and asking them to know, me as a person, I'm going to uphold your life, and I'm going to praise your life, and I'm going to remember your life. That's ancestor worship, because those are direct people that will look out for you and care for you wherever they are in this world, whatever energy they're expounding upon the world. They will appreciate that, and they'll look out for you. One second. All right, I'm back. But yeah, learning about myself. It's such a big thing, man. It's to learn about yourself, learning about your history, your own personal history, and also your history as a people as well. Whether that means you're Hispanic or from a Latin America country, whether that means you're of European descent, whether that means that you're African or East Asian, whatever that may be, knowing your people's history, but also knowing your direct lineage's history as well, and the sacrifices that they made for you to be here, as far as back as you can go, as far back as you can understand, and honor those people when you pray, honor those people that came before you, that gave their life for your life to be in this world, and giving your energy to that. So that's one thing that I do nowadays, and I feel like it helps me a lot. I feel very calm whenever I do that, asking for them to guide me. Another thing I do, which is something I've been doing since I've been a child, is I read incessantly. But reading can also be something that, for me personally, that can also make me not draw away from people, because I'll use it as a comforting tool to allow myself the thought that I don't need to be actively connecting with the outside world. And that's kind of the proper way to think about reading. Reading itself is a solitary task, but reading is very communal, because you can present the work or the literature that you've read. You can connect with others on it. You can join a book club. There's most books out in the world, somebody has read it. There's forums for it. You can go to libraries, you can go to coffee shops, all these different things, and expands your knowledge and your vocabulary, where you can articulate the things that are on your mind and present those words and thoughts to other people. So a lot of times I'll use books as a crutch to allow myself to go inward. But when I notice these emotions pop up, I use the books to allow myself to go outward. Because when you're accumulating knowledge, a lot of times you're taking all this in, and you'll get the anxiety because you're holding all this information in, and you need to give it out. You need You know what I mean? You need to give it out to the people, the words and the thoughts that are coming in your brain, and the knowledge that you're accumulating. You need to give it away, because holding it in a lot of times can make you anxious. And again, I didn't think I was that anxious of a person, but you learn that anxiety shows up in so many different ways. It's such a creepy, sinister emotion, that sometimes gets a bad rep, or it gets too much credence to what it is, or precedence to what it is. It's an emotion, that you have to work through, just like love, just like hate, just like anger, just like anything. And that's also, I got ADHD. That's why you always see me moving. But it's like even with like acting. You know what I mean? That's why I like acting so much, is because it makes you process those emotions while being in some other person's shoes, which is a whole different way of thinking. Yeah, but okay. Let me get back to the point, because this is getting longer than I thought it was going to be. Um, yeah, being overwhelmed. um, in this world, in this capitalist society that we live in, being overwhelmed can often mean losing your livelihood. It can all sometimes mean that could be detrimental to your finances. It can be detrimental to, of course, your mental health, but also the life that you built. Being overwhelmed means that you can go so far down in that rabbit hole that you lose everything that you've worked so hard for. And because we live in this world where we don't get the proper resources to be able to take a pause, it's important that you learn the proper steps to allow yourself to take a pause in whatever way that is. And that's why I think it's so important to process these emotions and go through these things, and figure out proper ways for you to go through these things. But yeah, man, I'm gonna do more videos, man. I really just want to use this as a tool to just release the knowledge that I've accumulated over these years, man, and talk about the life that I've lived over my 20s. Because I've had a really interesting life, bro. Like a really, 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 really interesting life. And as I'm venturing into this journey of really professional acting, every month that I've been here, I've made at least 5 figures. Doesn't sound like a lot, but 5 figures from acting, which is a good amount without an agent at that. I don't even want an agent. I just booked the lead role as well. Then I'm going to be shooting at the end of the month. I'm going to be showing you how I prepare, what I eat, how I stay lean year round, how I went from like 220 to right now I'm about 173. All these different things. What do those things look like? But yeah, man, I'm Johnny Joyner from Memphis, Tennessee, born and raised. I'm now in Los Angeles, California. I'm an actor, writer. Yeah, man, and I appreciate you for staying for the however long this video may be, and I'll see you in the next one.